Welcome to the second episode of RLCS Breakdown, and the second part of my RLCS X All-Pro teams, where we're going to focus on Europe. We got another long one today, so I'm not going to waste too much time with the intro. I'm going to put up the full teams and timestamps in 3, 2, okay, well that was a little early, but I'll take it. And without further ado, let's talk about how good BDS is. In the last episode, I said that I thought that First Killer was the best player in the world, and while I still think that's the case, M0nkey is the one player that I would say has a very good argument for that title. And he has that argument for the same reason that First Killer does. His great versatility. M0nkey is comfortable and composed in every position, and he never looks like he's out of place, regardless of what's going on around him. But while they both have similar ability and versatility, the main area where they differ is their tendencies. While First Killer likes to be more aggressive and create havoc in the backline with boost steals and demos, trying to stop the opponent's offense before it even gets started, M0nkey, on the other hand, is perfectly fine with letting the opponent's offensive play develop a little. And a lot of the time, he's even fine with letting them get a shot or two off while he's back in net to cover it. Because most of the time, he's willing to bet that one of two things will happen. One, his teammates will stop the offensive play in the midfield before it becomes a real threat, and they're very good at that, as I'll explain later. Or two, if the offense somehow manages to get past his teammates, his defensive ability will be enough to make a save on whatever shot comes his way. And that's a bet that he won over and over again throughout the season. Team BDS had the fewest goals allowed per game for both Europe and North America at 1.41, and they're miles ahead of second place in the region. Not only that, but their opponents had a shooting percentage of 19.25, third lowest in the region. Couple that stat with M0nkey being third in the region in saves per game, and it's fair to say that M0nkey executed the role of the backline defender better than anyone else in the region, and arguably the world. He can excel in that position thanks to his incredible reaction speed and composure. But on top of his backline defense, he's also the primary creator and finisher for BDS on offense, finishing top 10 in goals, top 3 in assists, and leading his team in both. So you can believe me when I say his versatility makes him one of the best players in the world. But in case you need more convincing, let's look at this play, where he puts his offensive skills on display. Up to this point, BDS have had the ball on the offensive side of the field for about 30 seconds, but they haven't been able to break through the queso backline, so M0nkey decides to take matters into his own hands. After the boost steal, he slows down to hit the ball, popping it straight up into the air, and immediately quick aerials to get another touch on the ball. This allows him to get it up and over the charging VK Salen. The next opponent he has to worry about is Atomik, lurking nearby on the back wall. He jumps off the back wall to begin his challenge, trying to position himself between M0nkey and the net, but right after Atomik jumps, M0nkey boosts into the ball and gets the flip reset. And with that reset, he front flips with the nose of his car under the ball. This lets him scoop the ball upwards and make sure that Atomik has no chance of touching it. Like his two teammates, Dimenso rushes in immediately when it's his turn to challenge, hoping to rush M0nkey into a mistake, but M0nkey is unfazed. He uses his boost to stay in the air with the ball while angling his car for a good shot on target, hitting it with the front corner while upside down. And just like that, M0nkey finishes the 1v3 flip reset scoop double tap goal. Man, what a mouthful. Archie came into this season as a relative unknown and ended it as an undeniable star. He was a complete force in every area of the field, and sometimes it felt like whenever something good was happening on the field for the Blokes, it was because of Archie. He was top 4 in goals, assists, and saves during the season, and had the second highest goal participation percentage in Europe, behind only Ronaky. In fact, he had such a good season that you could even call him the top bloke. Nah, I can't actually make that joke. I would never forgive myself. But the team came into each game with the same strategy. Get Archie the ball in space as much as possible and let him control the play. And if they didn't score, Cassio and Flame would slow down the opponent's offensive push as much as possible until Archie recovers back to net. Then they play defense until they get possession back, and when they do, give it right back to Archie, and the cycle repeats. This isn't to say that Archie completely carried the offense on his back, because Cassio and Flame were both able to create and finish opportunities whenever they came, especially when it came to delivering infield passes. But the top blokes were clearly most comfortable when the ball was moving to and through Archie, and they made it a point to have that happen as often as possible. Let's take a look at why that was such an effective strategy. This play starts with Archie on the back wall, preparing for the offensive push. Devo tries to aim it at the backboard in a spot that's outside of Archie's reach, but he's able to catch up to it and uses the back wall to get a booming clear to the corner. And he also does a good job making sure it doesn't hit the side wall instead, which would bring the ball right back in field and basically serve as a pass to the offense. Then, he immediately begins his read of the ball, trying to see where it'll end up after bouncing off the corner. Once he knows where it's going, he changes the direction of his car and makes a beeline to the spot. His perfect read allows him to get to the ball before Noly, and he hits it towards the wall to keep it away from him. After that touch, Archie has used all of his boost, and with the ball going as fast as it is, he only has one more chance to make a play. But here's when he sees Thow's mistake. As he has come too close to the ball, being caught in a position where he can't cover the net, but also can't effectively challenge the ball. So Archie uses his last touch to pop the ball over Tho's head and gives it enough speed to reach the net before Devo can recover. The entire season was a bit of an uphill battle for Solary. After the fall split, where they had just barely qualified for the major, they were sitting in 13th place. While they eventually climbed their way back into the top 6, and in spite of the championships, the season was still full of middling performances, short of the high expectations that came along with Astral's arrival at the beginning of the season. But despite that, Aztral stood out as an obvious bright spot for the team, serving as the main source of creativity and playmaking with the ball for Solary all season. Sometimes the lack of cohesion as a team made things harder than they should have been, but his relentless and creative playstyle eventually proved to be enough to lead Solary to a spot in the championships. He would constantly use his world-class mechanics to beat defenders in 1v1 situations both on the ground and in the air, putting the defense in awkward scenarios, resulting in either direct shot on goal or one of his teammates following up to start a prolonged offensive push. His mechanics allow him to be deadly if he's given too much space, but he also has the speed and adaptability to get another touch on the ball when the defender least expects it, meaning it's never totally safe to go for an immediate challenge on him either, creating a lose-lose scenario for the defense and giving Aztral the advantage in nearly every play. We see the speed and creativity at work in this play against SK Gaming, where we have the ball flying towards Aztral while he's in the back corner. He flies straight up to meet it, and hits it gently over to the side wall close by, and then rotates his car to fly over to that wall and land there himself. With the ball securely in his possession on the side wall, he has time to decide his next move, but unfortunately for him, he's all out of boost, so he can't air dribble. But although he can't air dribble, Ixo doesn't know that, and he still needs to respect that threat. So when Aztral jumps off the wall, it looks like an air dribble is going to start, which freezes Ixo in place as he waits for the next touch. Then Aztral turns his car upside down and uses his second jump, which helps him get down to the ground faster so he can catch the ball once he lands. At this point, Ixo knows what's going on and he charges in to stop the play. But because of his jump to speed up his descent, Aztral is able to land directly under the ball before Ixo can reach it, and he single jumps to pop it over his head. He then goes for a boost steal while Farah challenges Yukio's clear, and Farah manages to send the ball straight down to Astral's car, who turns and jumps, getting a perfect redirect shot that goes right past the defender. For the second part of the video where I talk about how good BDS is, we take a look at Marc by 8. Every player on BDS has a preferred role in defense, and Marc's is without question midfield disruption. Marc is the embodiment of the best defense being a good offense, because even if BDS loses possession of the ball, Marc will still chase after it like they still have it. The moment that the opponents get a sliver of space with the ball, you can expect Marc to come charging in looking to disrupt the play. Exhibit A.
Recovers, scrambling in the defensive end, Solary hanging on as the Marc by 8 is a bit of a rampage on his retreat.
This tendency also has Marc take short rotations towards the ball as he's rotating back on defense, which on most other teams would result in him cutting off a teammate as they try to challenge, and may even cause double commits. But BDS doesn't have this problem, because every player has their role in defense, and they stay in their lane, and you hardly ever see them double commit in any scenario. If I were to say that Marc plays no backline defense at all, that honestly wouldn't be too much of an exaggeration, because in reality he only does it when he absolutely has to, and with M0nkey holding down the fort behind him, he doesn't have to very often. This is proven by the fact that he was dead last in the entire region in saves per game, which almost seems impossible when you play for as good of a defensive team as BDS. You can see Marc's midfield disruption pay off perfectly in this play from the Spring Major. M0nkey starts the play off by reading Chaucet's pass like a book and breaks it up. Then afterwards, Aztral gets possession and is able to be extra in the air. So now, Marc is the last line of defense against the Solary attack, with all three players moving towards him and Aztral in possession of the ball. In this situation, you'd expect most players to try to slow the play down enough for M0nkey to get back to defend the goal, but slowing the play down isn't something that Marc does. In the face of a 3v1, and Aztral in possession, who as I said before can beat anyone off the dribble in any situation, Marc throws caution to the wind and dives in headfirst for a challenge anyways, which by the way was a fantastic play. He reads the position of Astral's car and sees that he's going for a hit infield, so when Marc jumps, he turns his car in that direction to get a better chance of cutting it out. When he gets a touch, Solary needs to scramble back to recover since they committed so heavily for the offensive push. Marc lands on the wall, then jumps off and wave dashes to maintain speed without any boost. And as Solary scrambles back, Extra managed to get a bump on Chaucet, who now has to try to flip into the ball at an awkward angle to get the clear. Unlucky for him, he's unable to get the touch, and Marc is able to come in and secure the goal for BDS. Finally, for the last part of our BDS special, we have Extra. We've talked about M0nkey role as the backline defender, and also about Marc's role as the midfield disruptor, but Extra is the one that falls between these two extremes and ties them together to make them the great team that they are. And to be honest, I think that his defensive role is harder and more important than either of his teammates, because his next step depends on what's going on around him. But if I were to summarize his role in one phrase, I would say that Extra is the go-to shadow defender. Marc often goes for early challenges, but if that isn't enough to shut down the opponent's play then and there, then it's up to Extra to get in a position where he can slow down the offense's play enough to give M0nkey enough time to get back to net. And once he does, Extra then has the green light to stop shadowing and go challenge the ball, becoming another midfield disruptor, which he does often because, like Marc, he's also in the bottom 10 in the region in saves per game. I said before that Extra's role is the hardest because it's not always predetermined what he'll do on a given possession. Marc likes to challenge early, but if he's out of boost and he can't, then Extra will do it for him. And if the other team takes an early shot while Extra's shadowing, not giving M0nkey enough time to recover the net, then Extra will make the save for him. He's constantly adjusting his role, covering whatever area the team needs and making sure they stay on track. To play this role, you need incredible awareness, but this awareness also benefits Extra on offense, as it did on these two passes from the Winter Major against Vitality. In the final seconds of the game, BDS is down by 2 and fully committed to offense to try to get the next goal. Extra jumps in front of Fairy's attempt to clear and keeps the ball in their offensive half, and M0nkey is waiting nearby to follow up on his challenge, hitting the ball off the backboard. With Marc going through the defense to look for bumps, it's on Extra to take the ball again, so he takes flight looking for the next touch. This is a threatening position for a shot, and because of that, K-Dop and Alpha are both sitting in goal to cover that threat. But since those two defenders are locked in goal, M0nkey has space in front of them to take advantage of. Extra flies up for the ball and spins his car around so that he can hit the ball on the right side with his front bumper while leaning into it to get the pass down to M0nkey. By the time K-Dop and Alpha realize that M0nkey is there for the final shot, he's already up in the air lining it up, and neither one of them can get up in time to make the save. In the next game, they're in a similar position of maintaining offensive pressure. Extra again jumps out in front of Fairy's clear, cutting it off and keeping the ball on offense. Marc is able to follow up on Extra's hit that bounced off the corner, and with his touch, he passes it back down directly to Extra. And Extra, in turn, passes the ball directly out to M0nkey, who is sitting in front of the offensive net with plenty of space, since K-Dop and Alpha are both on the back wall, trying to read what Extra is going to do next. He even flips away from the ball on the hit to make sure that's not going too fast for M0nkey to catch. M0nkey receives the pass and slots it in, directly between and under both defenders. After bursting onto the scene as a young prodigy with tons of potential, Alpha has officially grown into one of the top players in the entire world, establishing himself as the best player on a team featuring 2 Rocket League legends in K-Dop and Fairy Peak. With these top level teammates in support, Alpha is free to fly around the field either with the ball in his possession or chasing after if it's not, going for aggressive challenges and looking to break open holes in the defense with his 2 teammates nearby to follow it up. Where most players like to keep the ball as close to their car as possible when they have possession, Alpha often likes to move the ball into a position where there are no defenders, and a lot of the time, this involves booming the ball as fast as possible into a more threatening position where he can use his great speed to follow up on it before the defense can. After the defense moves to adjust to his new position, he looks to take advantage of the holes that they leave open while rotating, either with a pass or a shot. This play from the Winter Major shows Alpha in peak form. It actually starts with a double commit from Fairy and Alpha, and the ensuing 50 shoots up in the air towards the Dignitas half. Since Alpha drove over the mid boost after the double commit, he has a full tank to work with. He uses a quick aerial to gain height as fast as possible and manages to beat Jack to the ball. With his touch, he gets the ball over to the sidewall into a position where he can follow up on it. But before going for the second touch, he uses a little bit more boost to get all the way up to the ceiling, getting his wheels on it to get another flip. After getting the reset, he flips his car right side up again and lines up his next hit, which is honestly my favorite part. He flips into the ball and hits it into the perfect spot on the corner of the wall, which directs the ball both inwards and downwards. Enjoys had no idea that this touch was even coming because he jumped up to follow up on Alpha's first hit. This bounce off the wall serves as a perfect pass that lands in front of K-Dop in a perfect shooting position, and at that point, K-Dop did what K-Dop does, and he knocks it in for the goal. I'm going to take a second to be honest with you all. One thing that frustrates me is when people use stats as the end-all be-all for a sports or esports argument. For example, if someone looks at 2 different basketball players and then says something like, well, this guy scored more points than that guy, so he's clearly the better player. In reality, these arguments require much more nuance and context, and relying on only stats without that context to try to make a point isn't nearly good enough in my opinion. So to tie this point into Ronaky, when I first started making these all-pro videos, I didn't really have him under that much consideration. Like, I knew he was a great player, but I kind of figured that I wouldn't have a spot for him on the teams when I first started making my list. But then I looked at his goals per game stat. In fact, I'll pull it back up. This number, right here, is ridiculous. Like, let me show you how ridiculous it is. I'm not just going to compare him to the rest of Europe, but to both Europe and North America. So of course, Ronaky is the leader in goals per game at 1.05, and in second place we have First Killer at 0.91. which gives us a gap of 0.14. If you apply that gap to the second place number, that would take you all the way down to 18th, which means that the gap between first and second is just as big as the gap between second and 18th. First Kill is my pick for the best player in the world, and he didn't even come close to Ronaky scoring. And again, this is compared to both Europe and North America, because if I only included Europe, the gap is even crazier. And on top of the goals, his shooting percentage also led both North America and Europe, despite him taking the 7th most shots per game out of all the players in the two regions. Shooting percentage is a stat that I think is overrated a lot of the time, but when you take that many shots and still lead both regions in percentage, that can't be ignored. Ronaky is a highly efficient volume shooter, which is honestly a cheat code. All of these numbers are impressive enough on their own, but they get even better when you consider that he did all of this while playing the winter and spring split with Team Liquid, who, let's just say, underperformed. Their only viable strategy was to give Ronaky the ball as much as possible and have him dominate, and their opponents knew that too. So every opponent on the field knew that they needed to stop Ronaky from scoring, and he would go out there and score anyways. But, as I said before, I don't like to rely on stats alone to satisfy an argument, no matter how good the numbers may be. So I looked at as much of Ronaky's game footage as I could find to see if he truly deserves a spot on the list, and yeah, he definitely does. The guy is an absolute menace. His shooting is the closest thing that Rocket League has seen to perfection in that area, and for some of his shots, I truly don't know how he's able to generate the power that he does. Instead of picking just one of his goals to analyze, I'm going to show a few examples from his point of view. And it's important to know that this is just a small sample size of all the bangers that he's hit throughout the season, with a lot of them being just as fast and just as accurate. And if I haven't made it obvious enough already, I'm a pretty big Ronaky fan now. Team Queso entered the Rocket League scene as the perfect embodiment of the hyper-aggressive, hyper-speedy Spanish playstyle, especially after bringing on VK Salen, who brought this playstyle full circle with his especially speedy playstyle after joining the team at the beginning of the winter split. The way that Queso's offensive aggression would show itself was in the form of all the shots that they would take on the opposing net, looking to either find a hole in the defense, or if one wasn't there, create it themselves. Atomik led the way for his team with his shooting, being second in the entire region in shots taken per game, behind Tho. With the volume of shots that Atomik would put on, it would frankly only be a matter of time before one of them goes in. But it also helps to shoot with the power and accuracy that Atomik does, ensuring that even if it doesn't go in, it's threatening enough to scramble the defense that much more, giving his next shot an even better chance of going in. And although Atomik is primarily a scorer, he can use his high-flying ability to throw some great passes as well, as you'll see in this play from the Spring Major. We start with VK Salen taking the ball out of the defensive corner, with Atomik turning to start a forward run alongside him. With Ixo rushing in from the wall for a challenge, VK Salen throws the ball forward, taking it past him. It's now on Atomik to beat Yukio to the ball, which he does with relative ease. With his touch, he slowly hits the ball towards the wall, and starts to angle his car to land on the corner of the wall, next to the ball. And while he's going towards the wall, he even gets another touch on the ball with his wheels. Whether or not this was intentional, it works out perfectly for him, because it keeps the ball close to his car and the wall, so he has a much easier time with the follow-up hit. The final pass is actually the easy part, because Ixo and Yukio both got beat earlier, and they haven't been able to recover yet. VK Salen has moved up to get into Tox's face to keep him from making a save, and you have Demensa hanging out in front of the net, waiting for the final feed from Atomik. So Atomik simply jumps, twirls, and gently lays it off to Demensa, who easily scores the goal. Finally, rounding out our European teams, we have Noly, who is one of the more unique players that I've taken a look at while making these videos. When people think of a good offensive player, they usually think of speed and aggression, putting pressure on the defense while trying to break them down over time. And while Noly is a great offensive player, proven in part by being 4th in the region in goals per game, Noly isn't that aggressive type at all. Instead, he's one of the most patient players that you'll find, often getting his goals in one decisive move instead of constant pressure. And a lot of the time, he's following up on the havoc that his teammates create, that teammate usually being Tho. Noly spent the most time in the region at 100 boost, and also spent the most time between 75 and 100 boost, showing that once Noly fills his tank, he likes to sit on it, waiting patiently until the time comes where he can use it most effectively. And he also had the farthest average distance away from the ball, which does two main things for him depending on where he is relative to the ball. If he's behind the ball, he surveys the field from afar, and being away from the ball gives him more vision over the entire field. This vision makes it easier to read the play as it unfolds and anticipate where he will be able to commit to the play and get maximum value out of that commitment. But if he's in front of the ball, then he's serving as a perfect pass target for his teammate by settling into an open pocket of space down the field. Either way, this far spacing paid off for Noly many times during the season. This play is a perfect example of Noly's patience paying off. It starts with Archie popping the ball up in front of Guild's net, but with no teammates in the area to follow up on it. Devo is able to easily pass it up to Noly, who has been hanging out on the right side of the field after taking the mid boost. Bluey pre-jumps to cut the pass off, but Devo puts it underneath him, and Bluey misses the read, giving Noly extra time and space to work with the ball. And since he's Noly, he's going to take all the time that he can with it. With his first touch, he sets up a quick bounce dribble as M0nkey lines up his challenge. But after just one bounce, Noly drives into the ball immediately after it hits the ground, popping it up and changing the direction of the ball, which ruins the angle of M0nkey's challenge and takes him completely out of the play. Then, Noly uses his next touch to get the ball moving on target. Lastly, he has to deal with Archie, who's rotating back into net. Archie has to worry about both the ball and Devo coming in for the bump, so he rushes his challenge a little bit to avoid Devo, and he flips in front of the ball for the 50. The only problem is, there is no 50, because instead of going for the 50 himself, Noly stays grounded and waits in front of the ball. So Archie flipping in front of the ball for the 50 turns into him flipping right past the ball and leaving the net wide open, all because of Noly's patience and composure. Man, 18 player profiles and more than 40 minutes later, and I'm wrapped up with my RLCS All-Pro teams for both Europe and North America. As much as I've enjoyed looking back on RLCS, and I might even do another video or two on things that caught my eye from last season, I'm really looking forward to my future videos where I can talk about my expectations for the upcoming season of RLCS, especially regarding a certain killer going to a certain clan. But before I go, I just want to thank each and every single one of you for your support. I'm starting to see a little bit of growth on the channel, and I've been getting a lot of traction on TikTok after just a few days, which has been both unexpected and really exciting. I can't put it into words how much it means to have you guys watching and enjoying my videos, and I hope to continue improving them as I move forward. But until then, thanks for watching.